Turn around and walk away is the easiest way, they say.
Hi, my name is Tanea Williams. I am a CEO, owner of Ready Reiki. I'm also a Reiki master and intuitive healer at Ashanti Wellness. And I am here with my lovely co-hosts, Spencer and Danny. Spencer, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer, and I'm also a Reiki master practitioner.
And Danny?
Hi, everyone. I'm Danny, and I'm also a yoga instructor and have been offering guidance for other yoga practitioners in Charlotte for roughly 4 years now. So that's me.
And we are all here today to talk about integrative health. So each one of us are coming with our interest and expertise in different levels and different topics of integrative health. So I want to start with Danny and see, what do you want to tell us about integrative health today?
Yeah. So personally, just within like a therapeutic setting, what I tend to gravitate towards in working with clients is within the trauma realm. And so in working in trauma and with clients, we tend to want to start with like a sense of stabilization as well as like a sense of safety before we can even move into that realm of like processing through talk therapy. And so generally speaking, the modalities that you would find me using within that setting are, things like somatic therapy, body work, breath work, what it might look like to incorporate a yoga practice within a therapeutic setting, and sort of just finding ways to integrate those practices within that healing journey for clients. And for everyone, that tends to look very different. And so I'm really excited about today, just in general, because within this idea of wellness, we're putting that word integrative in front of it. And that's because there are so many different ways that wellness can show up for people, and so many different ways that like healing shows up for people. And so my specialty in particular, using that sense of somatic experiencing and body work, that is all about just figuring out how does trauma show up within the body and what that looks like. And that can look like a million things for, different people. That can look like oftentimes holding our breath. It can look like chronic illnesses. It can look like mental health struggles. And it's not just limited to that mental health realm. So oftentimes we start to say like, oh, this person's struggling with depression, anxiety, trauma. When we say those things, we often get sort of stuck in that idea of like, it's all mental. And there's tons of scientific research and evidence that shows that that's not necessarily the case. It shows up within our bodies.
That is actually the best I've ever heard described in yoga in relative to traditional therapy and making it integrated. The way you described it let people know that there are more than one way that you can get healing. You can have wellness. And it's very important that people know that we don't cookie cut, especially here in Ashanti Wellness.
Yeah, so something that I really have studied a lot in integrative health is plant medicine and utilizing that as part of a holistic regimen for your healing, and also just daily maintenance even. So I like to think of plant medicines as for everyone, really. There are so many different ways to use them, so many different options of plant medicines. So really they can be applied to anyone, even people who wouldn't identify themselves as maybe going through some kind of significant trauma or struggle or anything like that. They can also be used just to kind of maintain homeostasis within our bodies and maintain a connectiveness within ourselves. So some of the plant medicines that I typically work with are cacao. I work with adaptogenic plants when it comes to holistic and nutrition counseling. And then I also work with hape or rape and sananga. And so 3 of the 4 of these that I've mentioned are all Amazonian plant medicines. And Amazonian tradition, it extends back to 3000 BC that they've been using these, probably even before then. And they can be used before ayahuasca ceremonies sometimes, but they can also be used independently to kind of clear yourself out and clear your energy field. So the hape and the sananga, those are something that we have used at Ashakti Wellness, and we will continue to start using those with our clients here, which I'm really excited about, because sometimes people will describe that it feels as though they've been 2 years of therapy after just one ceremonial session using those 2 in conjunction with each other. Something I do like to emphasize, though, with using plant medicines is that sometimes when you use them in a ceremonial way to facilitate healing, it can stir up some things that you're not sure even how to process, because some of them can be extremely old or things to really bury down. So it's always really important to incorporate some kind of therapeutic processing into the utilization of plant medicines. So you'll want to do maybe one individual session at least to process kind of what happened after the ceremony, and perhaps even ongoing individual counseling as well.
Like with all of what we're bringing here today, like, you know, when it comes to sound healing and when it comes to the use of plant medicine or the use of like somatic experiencing or, you know, bodily sensations, body work, breath work, all of that is an experience in and of itself that uses less words. It's more of an experience. And so when you use those modalities, it's like you don't have time to talk about like what's going on because you're in the moment, you're experiencing your stuff. And what happens after that is like, that's why it's so amazing to think of it as integrative, because you experience that thing that you're choosing, and then you got to talk about it after that point.
And I love that you said that, Danny, because even in communication, verbal communication is the lowest form of communication. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the best way to get through it is just to feel it and get through it. Because when we do go through something, it is actually attacks us on a physical level. Whether it's emotional, whether it's trauma, it affects your body. And that's what made me be really passionate about sound healing, because it's something that actually goes to the physical body. Like you can actually feel the change. As I use singing bowls, I use tuning forks, I use binary beats. All of these things are all different tools that I use to give a certain frequency. Frequency healing goes all the way back to Greek time. They use different frequencies to heal different illnesses. And depending on the frequency, whether the tone, it will bring a certain level of healing. And each one of our chakras is actually correlated to a frequency. So all of these things, whether you're doing plant medicine, you're also doing yoga and movement, and then you're doing sound, all together brings a whole body, a whole being healing, not just the mental. So that's one of the things I'm very passionate about. You want to be very careful with sound healing, though. A lot of people know about sound, singing bowls, they know about tuning forks, but it is recommended with tuning forks and singing bowls that you do not play them for more than 15-minute increments, because it can throw off your frequency, your natural body's frequency. So you want to, just like with plant medicine, you want to be cautious. Even with yoga, you want to be cautious of what your body like, right, Danny? Because not every yoga pose is the same, right? I can't go all the way down.
With trauma, mm-hmm. It's like when you experience a trauma, whatever form that may be, whether it's, you know, physical, sexual, or if you were in a car accident, or if you have PTSD from combat, there are certain physical positions that can then put you in a mental place of like, I'm here, I'm in that traumatic moment again, it's happening all over again. And so when working with clients, it's really important to go over background and history of what's happened, if possible, to go over some of the events that occurred within that trauma, so that, you know, me as the clinician can have a deeper understanding. and be a little bit more cautious as to putting them in certain postures that can provoke that sort of like unwanted sensory experience that puts them in a place of panic.
That is good to know, because a lot of people they know want to start yoga, want to start healing or wellness, and they don't know where to start. And the fact that we're giving so many different ways that you can start, even combine, to get to the same place, which is the highest level of healing for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And another part of like just with trauma in general, and I keep referring to trauma just because that's like a realm that I tend to gravitate towards. But with, our brains, it's when we are traumatized, the left and right brain, how those sort of show up in our lives is completely affected by our trauma. And we tend to shut off that right side of our brain, which is more geared towards like connection, emotion. And we move more towards the left side, which is all about thinking logically, analyzing, and you become sort of disconnected from your emotion, disconnected from others. And it's really important to utilize other experiences aside from just talk therapy. Because if I'm sitting here and I'm talking to somebody who's been traumatized, they could probably just tell me their trauma in a very flat affect, flat tone. There's no emotion attached to it because they're doing that in order to create a sense of safety. But it's affecting the way that they're able to process and really move forward. And so using things like somatic experiencing, using things like plant medicine or sound healing can put people back into the moment and into a place of experiencing again.
I'm just glad that you said that, because I think that a lot of the time people will sort of like rationalize away their trauma, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I processed that, because they rationally have processed it, but they haven't really moved through those feelings that you were just describing, both of you. So I think that a lot of the time people will just be like, oh, I'm fine, actually, I've gotten past all of that. But rationalization and sort of coming to like a logical understanding about what happened to you, and that kind of acceptance is not the same as feeling that and releasing those emotions from your bodies. So I think it's super important to kind of separate between the two.
And what I love about what Danny said, and also what you said, Spencer, is lining up, because once you realize that the trauma is in your body, or you had trauma and it's affecting you mentally and physically, between the motion of your breath, yoga, different positions, and then using the plant medicine to be able to evoke an emotional reaction, because it brings up trapped emotion, and be able to purge that. And then also, even with sound therapy, the motion gets stuck in your body. You might have rationally went through it. You might have even thought that you felt through the emotion, but your body goes through a trauma. And between all three of these combined, you can actually expel this trauma, I want to say, out of your body. I actually had a sound therapy client who came in who had frost shoulder. We all know this is a throat chakra, so I knew there was other issues, but after I hit the singing bowl, she was able to put both her hands at the top. But she also cried when she did it. So, and it wasn't from pain, it was trapped emotion. Mm-hmm. So it is very important that we understand how deep trauma and emotional distress or any other things that affect our body, our mind also affects our body.
Yeah, if you even think about when you are getting a massage and a knot is released, or even just touched really hard, a lot of people will laugh, cry, just have some kind of emotional release that they weren't expecting. And that's such immediate proof of what we're talking about right now being the case. It's just in there, and you might not be aware of it, but that doesn't mean it's not affecting you.
Absolutely. I love that you bring that up too, because it's like in my yoga teacher training, I remember hearing it for the first time and not quite understanding this, but then eventually like we learn the anatomy. So there's like a scientific part of this, but also like an energetic aspect to this as well. But the idea of like heart openers being an emotional sort of release, scientifically, we're in like, this heart opening position. We're in some form of a back bend. Our chest is really open. And there's nerves within our spine that are getting sort of activated when we're in this back bend, which can send messages to our brain like, oh, this is a lot. And so that's why you might have a release. But from an energetic standpoint, your heart chakra is like, you are exposed. And of course, you're going to have some sort of emotional release. So it's all sort of connected. And again, coming back to that idea of like integration, it all comes together.
Yes, I am so excited about this talk today, ladies. Like, I don't know about you, I'm super excited about explaining things, especially these different approaches to integrative wellness in such a way that people can understand. That's why I love talking to you, Danny. I love talking to you, Spencer, because you guys have a wealth of knowledge, especially between yoga and plant medicine, but you make it so easy to understand. And that's what important. A lot of people want looking for the answers, but they're just lost in the words. So I want to thank you guys for real. Like, this has been amazing. And guys, come check us out. Come check Spencer, Danny, myself at Ashanti Wellness. And we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we look forward to the next time that we have the pleasure of speaking with you about integrative health.